Good morning and welcome to today's watercolor workshop. This is a program presented by the Loudoun County Public Library. My name is Jeremy and I'm a programming coordinator for LCPL and I'll be your host today. If you have any questions or comments during the program, feel free to use the chat box at the bottom of the screen and I will pass them along to our artist. I'm happy to welcome Megha Mehra today. She's an award-winning artist specializing in still life and realistic watercolors. Today, she's going to guide us through the steps to paint a jar of honey. Thanks for being here today, Megha.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Great way to start your day. If you just had your coffee, breakfast, or if you haven't, just grab some and join us. I think there's nothing like starting your day with something creative, no matter what it is. But I think art can really kick off your day in such a positive way. And that exactly is what our goal today is, to start your day with just some creativity and some sweetness of honey. So, really thankful for LCPL for all these opportunities for artists, and great to see so many patrons joining every time we do these classes. So, today we're going to paint this beautiful jar of honey. And I know some people can get really intimidated by painting glass. Yes, it can get a little tricky, but I'm going to take you step by step to paint this jar or this object in most simplest way. And you'll be surprised to see the results that you'll be really shocked to see the results that how you can paint this so easily. I'll give you guys at least 10 minutes to draw. If you haven't yet, the reference link is already been put in the chat link. If you have any questions, please let us know and we'll be happy to answer that. But for now, we'll just do a very simple drawing of the jar. And I'll just give you a few tips how to make this simple. uh, Try to see just the empty spaces here and draw around it. That'll make it easy to draw. And especially this area where you see the twine, the jute twine, it can get really complicated. So don't draw the detail completely. Just try to get the shape out of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, just like a zigzag shape. And when we paint, we'll actually do the details in it, and that will make it look like a realistic twine that is being tied to the jar. So don't worry. Same thing with this wood here that is used to take the honey out. Don't get into the details of all the strokes of painting. Just draw the skeleton of the shape. That's all. And then we'll take it from there. So get started. And if you have any questions, let us know. I'll leave the drawing as it is. And then I'll let you know what paints to use. Okay, let's get started. You can keep drawing if you haven't done yet, but let me explain the colors and how to approach this painting. You can see the colors pretty much simple. It's what you can see, because in realism, you paint what you see. And this is what I see. I see a lot of yellows. I see a lot of orange, a lot of browns, bit of red underneath. I see a lot of browns here and maybe some different yellows like raw sienna, which is more on the warmer side. And uh, I'm going to add a little bit of blues and greens just to complement, because we're going to use so much of warm colors. We need some cool colors to complement them and make it look real. So these are the simple colors we're going to use. I just have different yellows here. You can use whatever you have, and don't worry about if you don't have the exact colors what you can see here. Most important thing in this painting is to leave these white spaces as it is. This is what makes this image or this object look three-dimensional. And the shapes and the values. The value means something light or dark of an object. That's what makes this kind of image real. And to make glass look transparent, or so just like glass, what you see, this is the only aim that we need to follow, that leave these empty spaces and make sure that they're very clean and soft washes to make it look real. if you see how the light is falling here, the reason why these empty spaces are because the light is really harsh on them. So you can barely see any color here. So that's why you can see just empty white spaces. With this object, you make it look three-dimensional. If you see on top here, the light is really harsh, so it's lighter. And here, it's dark. If you really don't understand this in color, I can show you this in the black and white image. Look how different this looks in black and white. Here, things are a little lighter, and here it's dark because this is the shadow area. Same thing here. You see? This is the shadow area and this is light. So as long as you follow this in your black and white image, this image will start to look three-dimensional when it's almost 80% or 85% completed, not in the beginning. In the beginning, everything was going to look flat. So the way you're going to approach this painting is, I'm going to start from the top because we can let them dry, and then as we come down, then it's easy to work without getting your hands getting wet, your fingers getting wet. One more important thing here is we're going to use some techniques of watercolors, and I'm going to show you what techniques we're going to use. For example, when I say wet on wet, so I'm going to take some clean water, wet it, take some paint, and paint it around. So this is called wet on wet technique. Okay. And wet on dry means if this paper is dry, I'm going to take some paint. This is too dry. Wait. And I'm going to just paint it. So this is called wet on dry. So sometimes we're going to use this technique. The last technique that we're going to use is dry brush technique, because you see a lot of rough edges here for detail, and for that we need just dry. So the paper is dry, and I'm going to say some dry paint, which means very less water in on the brush, and you can almost hear the sound. So this is going to be the dry brush technique. So sometimes we're going to use this technique. The last thing what I mentioned here was values. Now what are values? It's just lightness or darkness of a color. Let me pick another color. Let me pick red. Okay, I'm going to take lots of water, very little paint, and I'm going to paint this. So this is one value. I'm going to take more paint and less water, and I'm going to paint this. So you see how dark this is. This is another value. So wherever you see dark places, you're going to use more paint and less water. Okay, that's going to be a darker value. Wherever you see really light, then we're going to use more water. In watercolors, we don't use white. You want to lighten anything, add water. You want to darken anything, add paint. So your water is the key vehicle to complete any painting in watercolors. And that's why people find it very difficult to control. But it comes with practice. It doesn't happen in one day, unless you're very gifted, but it takes time to practice. So we're going to start this painting now. And I'm going to start preparing some colors here. So I'm going to keep my black and white images in front of me because that helps me understand how light or how dark I should go. So I'm going to just wet, um, I'm just going to start painting with some raw sienna. This is almost like a very dull brown. Okay, I'm going to keep it light. I'm also going to mix a bit of this cool yellow color, like a lemon yellow. Okay, because I'm going to paint 2, 3 colors at the same time, like a wet on wet. I'm going to keep these colors ready. Okay, same thing. I might need this more almost orangey yellow. I can add a little bit of red to this just to make it a little more orange because that's what I see. Okay. I'll also keep some uh, brown ready, burnt sienna, because I'm going to work this a little wet on wet. So I want to make sure my colors are ready. Okay. So here we go. We're going to start painting. I'm going to take some first of my raw sienna, and it's okay if you don't have these colors, just pick one or two yellows, what you have. I just have them on my palette, so I'm going to use them. And I'm going to keep some empty spaces here. Remember where the light is hitting, I'm going to keep it as it is, not going to paint around them. And wherever I see some empty spaces, I'm just going to leave it. Okay? Because we don't use white in watercolors, your white paper is nothing but the white paint. Okay? I'm going to take some of this lemon yellow. Add in a few places where I see them. Just remember, it doesn't matter what color you put as long as the value matches. The lightness or darkness of that painting is what is important. While this is wet, I'm going to take that orange mixture I created. Remember, I'm only adding colors when it is wet. Why? Because while it's wet, they're going to mix well. Okay. I'm going to leave this as it is. Maybe a little bit of brown here. Okay. Okay. It's best to leave this as it is here now. Let it dry. Okay. We can come back, add more layers to it. But right now it needs to dry. Okay. So how are we going to approach this big area here now? Again, every painting looks like one gigantic project when you start, and it's so overwhelming where to begin and where to really start putting colors. The way I do it is I always chunk. So for me, this area could be one chunk because I can see where I can start something and stop. So this is another chunk for me. Then this could be one other chunk for me. Okay. So all these things you have to chunk it. Then there's a space here. Okay. So you can pause, come back down, and then again you chunk here. Okay. This whole area again could be tackled at once. You know why? Because it's just one big area, one big shape. Okay. That can be tackled easily. So you can wet this area, add some paint. Next, last is the shadow area here. Again, I can chunk that in another part. So it's very important that you just visualize yourself that I'm going to chunk it into one, two, three parts. You can break it down. It's very hard to tackle this whole painting in one shot unless you know you're very confident of using your brush strokes very quickly before it dries, and you have mixed a lot of paint on your paper. So this is how I like to do it because it gives me control and it gives me I can take some time to reflect, like, okay, where I'm going and where can I stop, and maybe I need to improve or change something. So it's very important. Lastly, like I said, values are very important. As you see here, this part is lighter than this part. Okay, so you want to make sure when you mix some yellows here, this is lighter than this. Okay, of course, if something is not matching, we can always go back and add more color. One more thing I want to highlight is when we paint this, if you see, these edges are so soft. Okay, I'll show you how we can go about it. But first, for now, we're going to tackle this top part. Let's start with this lemon yellow. Okay, and I want to make sure some oranges are already pre-mixed here. It's nice to have your colors mixed and ready, because what happens is when the paper is wet, you can work quickly. Once it dries, then it gives you a very patchy feel. Okay, so first let me try with this. It's just orange. Okay, tiny bit of yellows on the side. Remember, I'm using a very thin brush because, yeah, it is glass and it's going to be very delicate. So thin brushes, more control. Thick brushes, it's hard to control. Okay, I'm going to take some yellow, paint underneath. While it is already wet, I'm going to take the orange, add to this. Same sequence, take some yellow. Okay, I keep watching this shape. Take some orange and just cover this shape here. I will call everything while I'm painting as shapes, because there's no way you can define these shapes in a glass, right? The only thing you can say is it's the rim, it's the body, it's the bottom. But what about these areas? You just call them a shape, okay? That takes off a lot of effort on your brain to try to analyze what this is called. Same way, I'm going to take some yellow, work it in these areas. Just remember to leave those empty spaces as it is. Okay, very, very important. Those empty spaces can make or break your painting. Same, some oranges. And I'm just trying to cover the area with those colors. Doesn't have to be perfect. Take a tiny bit of red here because I want some more saturated oranges here. Okay, so this is good. Same way, we move on to the right-hand side. Get in all those yellows. Get in the same orange. Here and there, you can add a bit of extra orange here and there just to make it give a little bit of variance. You don't want everything to look exactly, right? Flat. And I'm just following the shape, nothing more. Because that's what I see, a shape. Tiny bit of yellow here. Just a few dabs. Okay. So you can see now we completed one area of this. Now we can just leave this alone. We'll follow bottom. I'm going to same chunk it. Wherever you see yellows and oranges, we can just follow the line and go on. When we come to the twine, I'm going to explain more how to go about it. Okay. It's very important to understand when you come to the twine, this is darker and the areas are lighter. This is what is going to make this twine pop out because it's on the outer layer and it's going to really look like three-dimensional, like it's been tied to it. So as long as you keep this light, this will look great. So keep it light. When you feel if you need more color, it's always easy to go back and add. But removing color is not a fun part because your paper can get damaged. It will look very ugly and patchy. So I always recommend go light. You can always go back. Once again, I'm going to go in, find those little spots that need some yellow. Look, throughout this painting, as we started, we haven't talked about anything called honey, right? Because if I keep telling you, you need to paint honey, you need to paint honey, there is a certain, keep that thing in your mind and you'll see how the magic unfolds here. You're basically training your brain to see things and not label them. Labeling really puts pressure on your brain and your creative side of the brain stops working. So, especially when you paint portraits, okay, when you say, oh, this is an eye, the minute you say you're trying to paint an eye, if it doesn't come the right way, then you feel like, oh, you're not doing well, you don't know how to draw. So you only talk in terms of shapes and the values. How dark should it be? How light should it be? Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, let me see if this is going to match. Take another yellow. Yeah. And you can see this is raw sienna. And I'm just, wherever I see a little dark, I add that. Okay. Mix some of that orange again. Keep the shapes intact. Keep it crisp. Okay. Remember, you're painting glass at the end of the day. So that needs to be crisp. And that's why it's important to use a nice pointy brush so that it looks crisp. That's the thing when you paint different shapes, right? When you're painting a tree, it's okay if you just mop something, right? It'll still look like a tree. But let's say when you're painting objects like this or like architecture, buildings, lines have to be straight. You cannot draw a crooked looking building, right? Straight lines matter in those things. That's why some people just love flowers and nature because they're not perfect. You can mess with them and they'll still look beautiful, right? But some people, um, when they try, same people, when they try to paint architecture, it's very hard because then they have to keep up with the straight lines and make it look three-dimensional. But everybody likes to paint different things, so it's okay. Same, I'm just going between the yellows and orange to make it look three-dimensional. I do add a bit of red in between to make it that orange intensify. Okay. See the gaps in between and move your yellows there. And that's what I'm trying to do. I already know that I need to add more yellow here because it's so light, but that's okay. I'll let it dry now. In the end, we can put a nice wash of yellow to really brighten that up. Okay. Now, I think this is a good place where we can go for the big wash. Okay. For this area now, for this whole shape, I'm going to use a bigger brush. I'm going to stop here, okay? Because I can tackle this part in a different chunk. I don't want to go all in between and get frazzled with what am I doing and not able to control my paint. So again, taking a bigger brush, first mixing a big, nice puddle of yellow. Okay. And remember we talked about the edges here, that this edge has to be so soft, like almost invisible. I'm just going to take some of my drawing out. Okay. So when I'm painting this area, when I come to the corner, I'm going to stop before I see the edge of that shape. Okay. That will make it look really soft. We can start from the top. Okay. And here you can see, as I come down, I'm going to reduce the yellow because it is more orangey and less yellow. Okay. So I'm going to keep it super light. To make it light, I'm just adding water or just cleaning it with a clean brush. Just bring it down. And these edges, okay, I'm just going to soften it with my brush. Same thing here. So that it leaves a very soft edge on the side. Okay. While this is wet, once again, we will go in and make our lovely orange, but not right now because it's going to all disperse. I'm just going to wait for a minute because I can see the sheen on the paper. Okay. And I don't want all the colors to just run in different directions. I want a little more control while it's wet. So I'll just wait this out. Until then, I'm just going to continue this. Take a smaller brush and put some orange here. You know? Okay. While this is wet, let's see if we are ready to put that orange on it. Okay. It shouldn't be too liquidy, I mean, too much water. Let's see if we can go. Yeah, that's not bad. So you can see that the orange is not running in 10 different directions because it is damp. This paper is damp right now, and the paint is also thicker than what the yellow we applied. So this is almost like gluing on it. Okay. You can take nice thick orange. Okay, so this is good. Wherever I can put some yellows. Okay. Just softening these places so that it doesn't leave a hard edge. You can see some brown spots here, right? So we can even tackle this now while it is wet. Okay. And I'm going to just take a very small brush and really thick paint. Okay. Barely any water in it, just tiny bit so that I can just pick up the paint. And no, it's too wet, so we'll wait. Even like a darker brown, burnt umber, or you can mix burnt sienna with some blue. Okay. I think it needs a little more. Darkness. So I'm going to mix a little bit of ultramarine blue with some burnt sienna to really make it dark. And this is really, I'm trying to be keep the paint as thick as possible. Yeah, so this is sticking better. Yeah. Just dabbling it with some dark paint. You can see it's just dots, dots. More dark paint. Just some blue. This area, the bottom has more of these dots. Okay, maybe you can just leave it. If we need, we can always go back and add some more details. But for now, I think we are okay. Just want to soften this area. Okay. Okay, this is good. Taking just a clean brush just to soften this because this left a very hard edge, and I think it's a good time to clean it off. Okay. Next, we can go and do this twine-like shape here. Okay, just remember to leave this empty space here. Okay, so that will be the only thing you need to remember. This. Okay, so I'm going to take some, again, it has a bit of same orange, browns kind of mixes. So I'm going to take some of that burnt sienna. And this is, you can go this a bit darker, because remember I said that twine is darker than the other areas. Same here, keep it light. This area is lighter. I keep looking at my black and white picture to get an idea of how much color to put. Okay, that's how I always follow my painting. It's better to keep it light than to make it dark so early that you just cannot get rid of that paint, and that painting doesn't look 3D. So always a good idea to keep it light. And I think I missed a small part. Couldn't keep it white. The best way to keep these white spaces alive is to put some masking fluid, but I know that can just take longer to paint, and not everybody has masking fluid. So I just keep it simple by painting around it. Okay. There's a bit of orange here as well. So I'm just going to dabble a little bit of here, oranges in this area. Basically trying to make it dark. You can also use a bit of brown just to give some variation. In the end, we still need some darks to make it pop out. Okay. So for now, this is good. Next, what can we work on? We need to work on the cleaning a little bit. Okay, we can work on the shadows. Yeah, let's work on the shadows here. And then we can go on the top and finish this area. Shadows. Okay, shadows, usually what color should the shadow be? The shadows usually reflect the colors of that object. Okay, and also what is beneath under it. Is it a wood? Is it placed on wood? Is it placed on some rock? So whatever those colors are, it'll reflect. In here, the shadows are very simple. You can see the yellow, the orange, all those things are reflecting here. And this base is really thick. So we're going to use the same colors here and keep it simple. But for shadows, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first wet it with some clean water, because I want to keep it really soft. Follow the shape. Similar colors, whatever you used in the thing, but keep it super light. Okay. So in the middle, you can see this. Then you can see things dispersing around. Bit of orange. And shadows also have some cool colors. So what I'm going to do is take a bit of blue combined with a bit of red, basically trying to make it purple. Okay, just slightly make it some cool colors. Okay. And you can see the orange here is really bright here in the take a bit of red. Okay. This is darker. I'm going to add a bit of red and a tiny bit of yellow. Oh, sorry, blue. Okay. This side needs a bit more definition. Okay. See, I went in too early, so this started to bleed. This is what I was trying to avoid, but I'm glad that, you could see that when it's too wet, it starts to bleed, and that's not what I want. I just want wet on wet to make it soft, but it started bleeding. But at least now you can see what the difference is between just wet on wet and bleeding. Okay. Okay, I think this is good for now, but just a little bit of shape here. We can go in and finish this. You can already see that this has started to look like a three-dimensional jar, right? And that's exactly what we want. We'll also finish a little bit more here, but it's quite wet now. So we'll finish this. I'm going to go really dark with some browns and some blues mixed just to make that brown look more darker. On top, I'm going to be lighter, and here I'm going to be really thick, okay, to make it look 3D. So let's go in. You can also add a bit of red. It doesn't have to be like pitch brown or dark brown. Okay. Just following the shape. And take a bit of that blue. And we'll keep this part more dark than the top. Okay. Same thing with the top part here. Bit of that blue to make it dark. Okay. Same thing here. I'm going to repeat. Keeping a little variation with some reds added to it. Okay. Now you can see there's a lot of reds here that we're going to start adding. Reds and some dark oranges. Okay. So I'm just going to keep it. Wherever I can put some yellows, I'll put some yellows. Okay, some orange. Okay. And just pull this color down. Little more darker here. Okay. Just like how we did the dark areas here, I'm going to take some blue and burnt sienna mix in this. And if it's dry, no, not yet. We're going to put those dark areas here. It has to be really dark, very dry, dark, thick paint, almost like black, you can see. And let's see if we can add here. It's, yeah, just to give that wood appearance here. You need a smaller brush, really dark paint. We're almost done with this painting, not much left. Some brown spots, some almost black spots. And this, this is a bit patchy. I need to soften this. Okay, when that dries, we can add more color to this. In the meantime, I think this can add a little bit of dimension here. Almost like the honey is being poured from here. Okay. All right. Next, we just have this twine to complete. And for that, what I'm going to do is all those strokes, those thick, that really make it look like a twine, those big darker strokes. That's what I'm going to paint first, because now it's time to give it some definition and shape. Almost like a dark brown, very, very thick dark brown. Okay. You can add a bit of red if you like, but make sure it is super dark and thin strokes. I'm just going to follow what it looks like. Okay. And once this dries, I'm going to add some more color to this. Okay. I don't want to disturb now. Anything here you can add. This area needs a little more intense orange. So because it is dry, I'm going to go in. See, you have to, in watercolors, you might have to go back and tweak again and again to make that values matching, to make it look 3D. And that's what I'm doing exactly. I am going back to make sure things look the way I see. So it's completely okay if you haven't got the exact color or exact value in the first instance, because that's how it is. Some colors dry light. So you have to go back and add, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, we're almost finishing up. Okay, not much left. Just some oranges here. Just darkening up certain areas that I feel is lighter. And you can just put some added strokes. Sometimes they really dry lighter, so I just have to add a few more. And yeah, I think that area should be dried by now. So again, some orange, some brown. Just make it look brighter. Okay. And now I can tell you that this area needs a big wash of this yellow again because it is super light. Okay, I'm going to go in. Sorry. Keeping the edges soft. Same thing. I'm going to go in. This area needs a pop too. Look, just by adding a small wash, how it just brightened up everything. And yellows dry very light. So it's very normal for yellow to go back. We need another wash on it. Okay. And just a few add-ons here. Some burnt sienna. Sorry, raw sienna. Okay. This area needs some darks. So I'm just going to give those details. Okay. I think this looks good, but just a little more. I just need a few more dark areas here for it to look three-dimensional. Okay. I think we're almost done. This looks good.